Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike.
And Beth.
My wonderful, beautiful co-host, traveler extraordinaire, wife, mother, trusted speaker. You just lined up another speaking gig today, didn't you?
I wonder if it's because I'm trusted. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that's the first thing you need in a speaker is you want to trust them.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I don't know any details yet, except they want to be inspired about serving, I think it was, or something like that. I need to look at. I don't have very many details yet.
Yeah, I wasn't available that night, so they asked if I had anybody I could recommend.
No,
right?
That's not at all what happened. And it was actually really nice because it was our former pastor that we worked with years ago. And so he reached out and said that they asked for a female speaker to speak to their women's group. And I was one of the first people he thought of. So I don't know if he tells all the women that. And like really I was plan B number 10 or something.
The most important thing, is it a paying gig?
This one they actually, I think, are going to pay something. I know.
Because we need to pay off this trip we just took.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So we took a little trip. And so this is just, I mean, literally hot on the tails of a trip we just took to Chattanooga. And we're going to get into we decided we enjoyed Chattanooga so much. We're going to turn this into a Chattanooga review show. But first, we have to review the reason why we went to Chattanooga. I love stand-up comedy. I have always loved stand-up comedy. I loved it as a kid.
It's what you would have been if you hadn't been a pastor.
And speaking of, Beth got me, I don't know, what was like a 3-session, like mini course in improv.
I'd said it was improv, but they also have the stand-up classes.
They have a 5-week stand-up.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you'll have your own little, I guess, 5-minute set. And all the students get to have a comedy night there at the comedy place.
Okay, which as an aside, this is kind of like going back to when we talked about what goes into a film. 5 weeks of training to have a 5-minute set. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put together some good jokes.
Yeah.
So
and have your transitions and everything.
I'm tempted to do that instead of the improv. Or do the improv and see how much I like it and then try the stand-up. Because there might be some stuff in the improv I can learn. But I would. I think at heart, I wish I was a stand-up comic.
Every time, though, I think about you doing improv, I just think about you being like Michael Scott on The Office, and they'll be telling you that you can't say you have a gun, and then you're going to whisper to the people that you have a gun and get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody will like me like him, right? They'll all go out for drinks afterwards and not invite me.
You. Yeah. Let's hope
sad.
that does. Well, that's why you can't do that. Don't do that. Just don't pretend. Yeah, don't be like an undercover person like he was.
But I love stand-up. And so many years ago, I discovered a young comedian by the name of Nate Bargatze. I was first on this train. And now everybody loves Nate. And Nate is probably the biggest comedian in the world right now. He's selling out arenas everywhere he goes. He's everywhere you look, SNL, everywhere. He has a friend named Dusty Slay, and Dusty is on his podcast every week as one of his co-hosts. And so I really started to like Dusty and started listening to Dusty's podcast, him and his wife, Hannah. And really their podcast was the real inspiration for me to do this podcast with Beth and for the two of us to do this.
Which I'd never heard the podcast, so I didn't know how inspired I was, but Mike definitely was.
I was like, we can do that. Like they just talk about their life and it's just, we listened to one today.
I did. I listened to my first one today.
And it was nothing earth-shattering.
No.
But it was entertaining.
Yes, definitely.
And fun.
Yes.
And so
it's probably what people say about us. Definitely nothing earth-shattering.
There's nothing.
Sometimes entertaining.
You're not going to walk away and be a deeper thinker
Well, if you would let me go deep sometimes, I think you could, but that may be too heavy. Again, we don't know what our audience wants. So
Well, I
we'll
know
just have to
our
see.
audience, and I don't think they can handle that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Good to know.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if
A
our
few of them
audience will be
could.
insulted by that, but anyway.
So anyhow, Dusty had his first. I'd listened to a couple of Dusty's albums from the late teens that he had put out, maybe 2015, 2019, 2017, something like that. And he's last year put out his first Netflix special, and it was a hit. And so he announced he was doing a second Netflix special taping, and it was going to be in Chattanooga. And so that's what I said, Beth, this is what I want for Christmas. So that's what she did. She booked us a trip to Chattanooga. We went this past weekend, went to the taping of his Netflix special, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Beth laughed until she had tears in her eyes.
Yes, it was really good.
And it was so good. It was probably the best I've ever heard him. I mean, he just gets better, as you should. You know, I mean, you don't want some special of yours to be like, well, last one was better.
Yeah.
You know, you want to keep improving. And I just, I don't know. I just, it was it was so worth the trip. And,
Well, and we won't go into too much detail about what he talked about, but let's just say that very early in his bit, I learned that we are the same person because we have the same fear about something that could happen on an elevator. So the whole time he was talking, I was like, oh my gosh, he's me. That's me.
you know what? I think for Halloween this year, you could be Dusty. You got about the same length hair,
That'd
and
be
it's
fun.
straight.
Yeah.
If we just get you a trucker hat.
And I have glasses.
And draw
Some facial hair.
Draw on some facial hair.
Yeah.
Or put a fake
And
beard
I have
and
a southern
mustache.
drawl, so I could
Yeah.
also. And Dusty and I have a lot in common.
Y'all
I've
do.
learned now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drank
so-
a lot, smoked a lot of marijuana.
No, we did. I do not know. I meant more like the whole thing about the elevator bit and just some of the other things he talked about. I was like, oh my goodness, I can identify with that.
Yeah. And maybe one of his best bits, if you listen to any of his older stuff, is when he breaks down country music songs.
Yes, and that's the part that makes me laugh till I cry.
And he did, we won't give it away what he does, but he does do another country music song.
But the previous one, if they want to go back, is like one of them's like Travis Tritt. He's got rice cooking in the microwave.
Great Day to Be Alive.
Yeah.
And then
he's like, is it if you're cooking rice in the microwave?
And the Alan Jackson, 5 o'clock somewhere, he breaks that one down.
Yeah.
And so
he had a new song.
he had a new
this
one,
time.
and it could have just been his best. I
Yeah.
mean, it was really, really
It was
good.
a lot of fun.
So
yeah.
we loved the show. I can't wait till the special comes out. We had great seats. We were like, fifth row, I think.
Yeah.
And right center. Really an intimate. We'll get into the theater here in just a few moments. But and it was just a great, great time. And we had a blast. And it was well worth the drive and the money. And, it was just kind of cool to be at a taping like that and to know. I will update everyone. I am a fanboy. And I've never in my life taken a gift to a celebrity. My daughter does it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's opened up doors for her that you wouldn't believe. So inspired by Maria, I thought, I'm going to take Dusty something. And so I think we talked about this on the last podcast.
Yeah.
I got him a bottle of Western Sizzlin sauce. He used to work at the Western Sizzlin. He has a bunch of jokes about the Western Sizzlin. And so we got him a bottle, put it in a little baggie, put our name on it. Beth dropped one of her business cards in.
Well, because we had a big debate, because Mike just put
From Mike and
Beth. Like he knows who Mike and Beth is.
It wasn't about us getting notoriety.
I
though.
know that. Well, I know it wasn't about that, but it's like, but then he's like, who is this? Like, he won't even know.
But here's what I like to think, though. Dusty and I didn't share this. We have emailed before.
Oh, goodness.
And we have emailed back and forth a couple of times.
I still don't know that he would connect Mike and Beth
We
to the sauce.
have commented on Twitter/X together on different things. Even Instagram. He's, hearted some of my stuff. And
Next level. He
so I'm
definitely
just
knows
saying,
who Mike and Beth.
he probably doesn't.
Yeah.
But I feel like at least we've had some type of interaction. Like him and I have talked.
Well, the problem was I didn't have a pen because I'd taken in a small purse, and so we couldn't add Giannopoulos to the last name. So that's when I was like, I don't know if I have a business card, and I have 2 or 3. I have multiple different business cards because where I work, the name of the place has changed so many times. And so I did have one of those. So we just dropped it in. So at least he could like put together with like, oh, that's who that was. I mean, not if he even cares. He may not, but at least then he knows who gave it to me.
I like to think he cares.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So anyway, we had this bottle. At the very end, he was doing 2 shows that night. And what they do is they record both shows and splice in what they need to from each to create this special. And so he went for a solid hour, but he did the same. I'm assuming the same show again after hours. So I knew the chance of meeting him in between the shows was about 0, just because I figured he'd want to kind of gather his thoughts, catch his breath, because our show ended at 8:30 and the next show started at 9:30, So, they had an hour to clear out the auditorium and bring in new people. And so we just went to the stage door, and I told Beth to do it because she's a woman, and women have a way of getting things from men that men can't.
This also tracks, though, with when Maria's done gifts. I tend to be the person in the family that everyone's like, oh, please, you seem to have no self-respect or pride. Just go up and embarrass yourself and ask to do this.
Well, you're an extrovert. You like doing this kind of stuff.
I don't know that I like putting myself out there and all that, but I did it because I love you and it was part of your gift.
We went up to the stage door, and Beth was very nice and asked the security guard, hey, we got this for Dusty. Is there any way we can get it back there to him? Could you take it or whatever? So the guy said, well, let me see. So he radioed somebody, and he made it seem like for a brief moment, we might get to meet Dusty to give him this gift. Yeah. And it kind of got our hopes up a little bit. And so we stood there and talked to him for a long time.
And got lots of recommendations.
Got lots of good recommendations. Yeah.
Because
he was great.
Because we'd just gotten there Friday. Yeah.
The auditorium had basically cleared out 100%. Yeah. We were the last 2 people in there. So finally he was like, well, they let me find out what's going on. So he radioed again. And he's like, all right, go downstairs and meet Frank. He's our head of security. And I was like, all right. And so we go downstairs and we meet Frank. And Frank is what I would consider your classic head of security. A man of few words and big muscles.
Yes.
Just standing there.
Yeah.
Hey, are you Frank?
Looking intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't even want to acknowledge, and he knew we were coming because his person had told him we were on our way. So Beth was like, well, we got this for Dusty. He's like, all right. And so he just took the gift. And
so hopefully they actually gave it to Dusty and everybody didn't go have a party with the steak sauce.
Hopefully not. And I emailed Dusty and said, hey, look, Beth and I were there. We gave a gift to Frank. Hopefully you got it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know. But,
exactly.
So that was our Dusty weekend. We had a fantastic weekend, Friday night, seeing Dusty. And if you have not listened to Dusty and you have Netflix, go watch his special. It is amazing. If you don't have Netflix, you can still kind of listen to some of his older stuff. It's good. Not his best, but you can go to YouTube and see some of his newer stuff too, which is really good. So anyway, that's that. But we weren't planning on doing a special on Chattanooga, but we like Chattanooga.
It was fun. It was a cool little town, big town, mid-sized town.
Is that your review of it? Oh, it was good.
Well, no, I'm just waiting for you to get to the part you said, I think we wanted to go in order about what we did, right?
Well, we went to Chattanooga several years ago.
Yes.
We went with the kids.
Yes.
We actually were staying in North Georgia mountains at a little cabin there that we got for free, or really reduced rate based on like clergy, whatever.
And it was the first time we ever found a scorpion on the East Coast. It was in the bathtub.
It was in Maria's bathtub.
Maria freaked out and Josh had to come. And
Josh
then we
came and grabbed it like it was nothing.
And found out they can also be in like Western North Carolina and stuff, but it was pretty fascinating.
So they're in the Appalachians.
Yeah.
So anyway, this little town we stayed in North Georgia was about 20, 30 minutes south of Chattanooga. So we went up there. We did the touristy stuff. We did the aquarium. We did Rock City. Yeah. We did Ruby Falls. I think that's the name of it. The underground waterfalls, cavern stuff. So we did that, but we didn't really spend a lot of time in the city as adults. And so that's what this time we were able to do. And so we left on Friday and drove. It's about 6 hours from our house in North Carolina to Chattanooga. And so we kind of took our time going there. We stopped in Bryson City and ate at a cool little place. And that's a neat little town.
Yeah. We had probably clogged a lot of arteries, but it was a really good grilled cheese with a lot of different types of cheese. And it had the river going by, and it was really cute too.
Yeah, it was a neat town.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bryson City. And so when we get there, we stayed at a hotel. And you might have heard the Chattanooga Choo Choo, which I think there's a song about it, or I don't know, I'd heard that phrase. And even a friend of ours, we'll call Ross, had even mentioned, he was like, "Are you going to go see the Chattanooga Choo Choo?" And I was like, "I don't think so."
Yeah.
Well, not only did we see it, we stayed in
there.
it.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. Like the place we called was called the Choo Choo Chalet. And so we get there and it's actually the old Chattanooga Choo Choo, almost like, what is that? Grand Central Station?
Yeah. That is like a much smaller cause you walk in, they have a building, and I guess it was their main.
But now it's like
station.
Restaurants and bars, and it's really nice.
And like just when you walk in, that's what of course it wasn't nearly as big as like Grand Central, but kind of that large dome ceiling that's really pretty and lots of glass on the front and the back of the building.
It's gorgeous.
It was really pretty.
Yeah. And then all behind it was just trains, old trains.
Yes.
And it looked like you could stay in the trains. And
some were really falling apart, but when we pulled up, there were some that I could see like a curtain or something, and it looked like a room.
Yeah. And Beth's like, "Are we staying in a train?" I'm like, "I don't think so."
Yeah.
But we stayed at the Hotel Chalet, Choo Choo Chalet.
Yeah.
That was like an old historic hotel that they kind of fixed up to make it feel kind of trainy.
It did, because when you walked in, of course, that part didn't. The colors it was kind of a darker kind of vibe. I don't know how to describe it, but it had like a big staircase. You'd walk up, and we were on the second floor. But on the first floor, you could tell they're very dog friendly. And I looked out our window. I'm like, what are those little things jutting out? And I think they have like a little space where your dog can be enclosed, but your dog can have outside time outside of the room, which was really cool. So it was really neat.
It was a neat, quirky little hotel.
And then we went in our room, and that was the part that definitely had the train vibe, because like the closet looked like if you were on like a train in the 1800s or something, like, a passenger train in the Western movies. It like you open up the little closet and it looked like that. And then the way the bed was designed, it just looked.
But the room was big. Yeah. It was clean. It was
wasn't
spacious.
like it's not like it was modern. It wasn't like it was like pictures of trains everywhere, anything like that. But you just felt like you were in like a train car kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great hotel.
Yeah, I really liked it. And it had a lot of room, and it had like a little table and everything, which was nice. But one thing that was interesting, I have a fear of hotel comforters, and always have. I don't like them. I think they're gross, because when I was young, I think I watched one of those, shows where people went in with a black light and showed where they weren't clean. And so Mike would always, sometimes he knew that. And I'd like, if I am in a hotel bed, I have to make sure the sheet is touching me, but not the comforter. So sometimes Mike, to freak me out, will like put the comforter over my head and stuff. So I almost vomit because I like freak out and I don't like it. But this hotel, like many now, has this new trend where instead of like the old style comforter, it had a duvet. And so I guess they do like the kind of the sheet over that, and it's white, and it was like, anyway, so Mike and I were talking about the difference in that, and so it was really clean and nice. But
I had never even heard of anything like that.
Yeah, like a duvet.
Yeah, a duvet. Yeah, I'm like, what in the world? Just give me a sheet and a blanket.
No, I was happy because I think it just felt like there's no part of some comforter that's going to touch me by accident. So I liked that part too. That was good.
I'm gonna start bringing a black light and just run it over stuff to freak
I'll probably
you out
never
in
be.
hotels.
And you would think too, like if I've traveled, I wouldn't be like this. But I mean, I've mentioned it too. Like it doesn't matter. Mission trips, hotels, anything. The first few nights I'm somewhere, I just have the heebie-jeebies. And I don't know. I guess it's just because it's not comfortable. It's not my space or whatever. But but this was really nice, and the hotel was neat, and it was quiet, and. Yeah, it was really good. And it was walkable to everything. It was a fabulous location.
It was a great location. Mm-hmm. And so the hotel, if you're ever going to Chattanooga, we highly recommend the it goes by two different names. It's listed as the Hotel Chalet sometimes, and then the Choo Choo Chalet, but it's right at the Chattanooga Choo Choo, like, whatever they want to call that now, monument
that area,
or whatever.
yeah.
But, it's a fabulous hotel. So we got in, checked in, got ready, and then decided to go eat. And
Yes.
so we, like you said, where it's located, it is walkable to everything. And so we just started walking toward the theater and ended up at a place called, I'm gonna hope I get this name right. It is Attack of the Tatsu.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it
TATSU.
either. Yeah,
The
it was
Attack of the Tatsu, which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But it's an Asian, what would you like ramen noodle?
Yeah,
Thai?
it's kind of ramen and Thai. It was like, because curry and the noodles and stuff for some of the dishes. I guess, I don't know, some people might call it like Asian fusion or something. But their ramen, I think, from what the waitress says, what their specialty is. But when we walked out in at first, I was like, oh, this is really tiny. And like, there were two people sitting outside. And because it was warmer that day. And then you walked in and it was like a counter that you go up. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't know what's happening. Like you go order at the counter and then sit. And there was like a family there. But then they were like, oh, well, if you want to sit in the back, you can. And we got in there early because we were going to the show and everything. So when we got there, almost nobody was there. And they take us back in this area and like, the lights are all red.
It's a crazy place.
Yeah.
It's like a secret restaurant within a restaurant.
It is.
Is how
it's
it
like,
felt.
yeah. And so you're back there and you're in all these.
But there was more people back there.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And it was that was the normal part of the restaurant. I feel like where if you want people to wait on you and stuff, where you go, but to eat, but it was, just the red.
And I heard them. You have to be 21 to go in that part of the restaurant.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Yeah. Well, and I guess that's why the families with the kids, they were at the front.
Because there is a bar. There's a bar in that back area. But they won't even let you in that back area unless you're 21.
But the back area was mainly like, I mean, I guess later at night it might have been more the bar, but it was all people eating. It was like the food part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like we each couldn't decide what to get, but we got, we tried some different types of ramen, which was really good. And we had great service and it was just weird. And the red lights they had very trendy music.
And then when we left though, that front was just
packed. Yes. And so it was crazy.
But it was like you order at the counter and you just go find a seat.
Yeah.
And it looked like people were sitting with people they didn't know. Yeah. I mean, it was very communal.
Yeah.
But it was a neat restaurant.
It was. And just the way it was laid out, everything was just different.
Cuisine.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah.
It's really good. And then we walked down, I'm going to get the name of this place wrong. It's called like the Cupcake House or something. But it was kind of the gourmet cupcakes.
Yeah.
And we just kind of wanted a little sweet treat before we went to the theater. So we went there and ate, and it was really good. It was just
we just had to walk through the part that I think the guy was referring to. He said there was kind of an area that's more like just like the business area. There's not as much there. So we had to walk through that. It was kind of like nothing going on that little part. But then, we got, we split a cupcake and that was really good.
Yeah.
And then walked up to where the theater was and there was a really cool, I couldn't tell. We thought it looked like the front of a church, but like almost all of it was gone and it was a little park. And finally we were able to read and figure out it was part of like a church.
All that was left, the steeple.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had it sitting on the ground.
Yeah. And then there was like a little park in front of it. And then we went to the theater.
And the theater was incredible.
Yeah.
It's the Walker Theater. And
when we went in, we didn't know what was going on because they kept sending us upstairs, even though we were on the lower level. And I'm like, we're going up. But then we figured out there's more than one theater in the building.
Yeah, they have their big theater, which is where they have the traveling Broadway shows. And they were advertising Hadestown and stuff like that. Kind of like we have here at the Tanger Center in Greensboro. But then they have a smaller theater. And it was
big. It had a balcony.
Yeah, it was, but it had church pews.
Yes.
What I would call pews.
But they have numbers on the back of your little seat in your pew is what, I mean, so it was really
It was unique. And so you're sitting in pews in this it looked really old. And it had a lot of history and a lot of character to it. It was a really cool place to see some type of concert, whether it's comedic or music. I just think it was a great environment to see Dusty in.
Well, and I thought the two men that sat beside us, one on one side of you and one on one side of me, were Dusty Slay. They each came in. They both had it's that style. They both had that long, straight hair. They both had on, like, what is he called?
The
a trucker cap.
Yeah, trucker hats.
They had on glasses. They had the beards. They had the guy beside me had the flannel shirt. I was like, oh, is this Dusty coming to sit beside me? And then sure enough, another guy comes in. So it was interesting seeing how much that style is.
It was
out there.
definitely a working man crowd.
Yeah, it was like
we
but
went.
there was some different ages though.
There was a lot of different ages,
but no like young people.
No, and like
not. I mean, when I say really young, I mean like no like even teenagers or anything. It was all like adults.
we just saw Nate. We've seen Nate now like 3 or 4 times, and we saw Nate Bargatze last year for Mother's Day. He came to Greensboro on Mother's Day, and he was in the Greensboro Coliseum, and it was sold out. I mean, it was just slammed, but there was a ton of families. Like, and he really is a family comic, and Dusty's super clean too.
Yeah. Which is what we like.
Yeah.
It's not like trashy.
Yeah. But he's definitely has a more of a working man vibe to him.
Just a little bit
Nate.
edge. A little gruffy.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
Yeah. Family with an edge. So he fits our family pretty well.
But it was great. There was video. The guy that opened for him was actually really good. They had a guy that was like the MC that opened for him, and he was great. And then, as you said, we went through and tried to do our thing at the end, and then got back and walked back, home because it was so walkable. Yeah. So it was great. Yeah.
Walked back home, and that was it for that night. The next morning we got up and we went and ate at a place called the Bluegrass Grill, and it was right there by, I guess I'm gonna keep calling it the Chattanooga Choo Choo area. It was right around the block there, and we went, and we get a lot of our recommendations off TripAdvisor. We are big TripAdvisor people, and so TripAdvisor has really never led us wrong.
Yeah.
And so we looked it up, and that was a highly rated breakfast joint, and so we went there, and it was fabulous.
But we sat outside.
Yeah, it was really nice.
And the one thing that did make us feel bad, though, they were running a race there, and I don't know what it was, a 5K, 10K, half marathon.
It was a lot. It was thousands of people running.
And it was interesting because Maria was running a 5K here at home, and she finished like 4th in her age division, so she did great. Shout out to Maria. But anyway, so you have all these people driving by as like we're deciding if for an appetizer we're going to order.
Running by, not driving.
I'm sorry, they're running by. Running by as I'm like, should we order the chocolate sourdough toast with chocolate whipped butter? So like you're watching all these people run by as like, your arteries are getting clogged as you're eating right there in that moment. But it was.
Some people run, some people eat.
I will say the other thing we saw, lots of dogs and very dog friendly. Because in addition to our hotel, when we were walking by, we have a friend, Jake, and he likes beer and dogs. And
why don't you just you've already outed Bill with the CPAP and French press. So now Jake will just be known as Jake, the dog and beer guy.
But no, the reason we thought of him is he and his wife have always had dogs and love dogs, but he also loves breweries. And we walked by, it was closed, but that morning we were like, what is that? Because we saw it looked like a playground almost, and it had this special like turf grass or whatever.
But it was crazy. It had hills and jumps.
Yeah, and then we were like, that's a brewery with a play area and a very elaborate play area for your dogs.
I mean, you would take your kid there and let your kid play.
I'd be like, hey, kid, as long as people have been picking up after their dogs, it would have been. But but I say all that.
But it doesn't matter. Your kid can pee and poop on that too. It's fake grass. You could just let them run around without a diaper or pants on.
No. But I say all that to say, very dog friendly city. Lots of dogs and things out and about too. So. But our breakfast was fabulous at that place. It was fun. That was a neat place.
Yeah, it was really good. And the funny for us because we didn't have to experience it. You got like 1,000 people literally running up and down the street.
And the street's blocked off.
The street's blocked off. And these 3 ladies come out of the hotel that's kind of like a downtown hotel right beside where we're eating. And they come out and their car is parked right there. Right where it says, do not park.
Yeah.
And they're looking around, and I'm watching them, and you can tell they're like now they're in panic mode.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? And our waiter had come over to us to refill our coffee, and they asked him, they said, "Sir, how long is this road going to be blocked off?" And by this point, it's probably 9:30 in the morning. He's like, "I don't know, man, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
They were like, "What?" And they were on their phones immediately.
Trying to get an Uber.
And I was
to
like,
get out.
all these poor people, like they're trapped and they couldn't get out and drive away because they couldn't read the signs.
Yeah.
And, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny.
But then we had to walk off our breakfast. And so we walked across. They have a pedestrian bridge. And it's like an old bridge that's like wood on
Well, we didn't walk to the bridge first. They have an amazing cart system.
Oh,
Remember?
that's right. I forgot. We did the carts.
And literally
They're electric carts. They're green.
Yes.
Yeah. So
right beside the Chattanooga Choo Choo is a garage where Chattanooga has free trolleys.
Yes.
And they call it CARTA.
Yeah.
And it's electric trolleys, essentially. And they drive around. I mean,
and
they
drop
have
you off. And,
they have. I mean, I don't know how many. We looked at the map. There was probably 20 different locations they pick up and drop off, and they run from like 9 in the morning to 9 at night or something.
Yeah.
And locations say a trolley will be by every 5 minutes, and so we went over there and waited and got our free trolley.
Yeah, and rode down to the waterfront
with some friends.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not saying this to be mean, but when they pulled up to pick us up, a homeless lady got off with lots of bags.
Yeah.
We got on. You could tell there was a homeless dude.
An unhoused.
Unhoused homeless guy on it. As at one of our stops, it wasn't our stop, I was watching another one pull up, and the person who got off was obviously a unhoused homeless person.
Yeah.
And I was like, I applaud Chattanooga for having something like this, but in a way, you're moving the homeless population around town, you know? But I saw something really sweet. Did you see what the lady did with the guy?
No, but he was so sweet.
He was
he just sat there and he just had this very gentle spirit. I don't know. And it's gentle spirit.
He got ready to get off.
Yeah.
Because he got off before we did. And when he got off and he walked up to her, he obviously rode that thing a lot.
Yeah,
because
she
knew him. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Here you go, sweetie." And she reached in she had like a lunch box, and she had a Ziploc bag, what looked like full of Oreos. And she gave him a little baggie of about a half dozen Oreos. And was like, "Here you go."
That makes me want to cry.
Yeah. So I thought, obviously, the homeless population takes advantage of this and can get them around the city, and that's fine. And on rainy, cold days,
it's probably a really good thing to have.
They can ride, and Chattanooga, God bless them. They don't, they don't
charging
run them off.
anything.
It's a free show.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool. This lady
had built a relationship,
right?
Like
you could tell she wasn't like, them again. It was like, all right, you're here. I'm gonna give you a little treat and love on you. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. That was something cool I saw. I meant to point that out.
I didn't see that. I just saw her. I heard him say something like "God bless" or something when he got up. He just had such a gentle spirit. Yeah. So, but the reason that also stood out is we saw them when we got on, the 2 people, and then we were by ourselves and we got off. And we saw 2 people, a couple, getting on where we were getting off to go. They wanted to go back up to the Choo Choo area. But most of the time, there was nobody but us on them. It was not, and this is a Saturday. So it wasn't like, no, also, though, I'm sure in the summer and stuff like that, it's more tourists, it's hot, people, or maybe in the winter when it's really cold. But there weren't many people. Yeah. Using it.
So so it took us from the Choo Choo area down to the
waterfront. Yeah.
And
that's where we didn't go in, but where the aquarium, the art museum.
There's a lot going on down there.
There was a lot.
Lots of stores, restaurants.
Yeah.
Like you said, the aquarium.
And then we walked across our pedestrian bridge, which has got like a wood bottom, and there were tons of people, again, walking dogs, but
walking, running, biking.
Across
the bridge. And it's a good sized bridge. It was a pedestrian bridge, but you could drive a car across it. It was a good size, but it was wooden, and they're getting ready to shut it down to redo the wood.
Yeah.
But it takes you to the other side of the river where there's more shops and restaurants and things of that nature.
So we thought we'd look and window shop a little bit, and there was a shop Mike really wanted to go into, and it was closed, and we don't know why, but it was like, it's a Saturday, and it's like time to be open.
And like all these shops are closed.
They like vinyls and stuff. All these shops are closed. Well, then we see this one shop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the succulents, and I'm looking at all the plants in the window, and they've got some, and I was like, I'm going to go in here and get some ideas for my plants, and then we realized it was some type of like dark arts store or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But all the front windows were
They
plants.
had a lot of Wiccan witch stuff up at that. Once you look into the store, not in the window.
But that was like the only place that
skeleton
was
type
open.
stuff.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah. But so that was like the only place that I was like, oops. I thought I was just looking at succulents and other plants because they did have some good
I
cool
was like,
plants.
You can stay if you want, but I'm getting out of here. It was giving me the heat.
And then we went out and walked right back down, and that's where and it wasn't time for us to eat. We just had that big breakfast, but there were some people getting some ice cream and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then we walked back across, and then we went to the pinball place. It's
the pinball museum. Yeah.
It's a
museum. So and Chattanooga reminds me a lot of Asheville.
Yeah, because Asheville's where I went to my first pinball museum.
Yeah, without the hills.
Yeah.
You know, if you like Asheville, North Carolina, or Greenville, South Carolina, you would love Chattanooga.
Yeah, because it's
love it.
And very much like Greenville with like the river, things built around that. That's the way Chattanooga felt. Yeah. So
and so Asheville has a pinball museum, and Beth and I went there last winter. And we went, and it's like $20,
and you just
you can play for all day.
Yes,
and the one in Asheville is bigger than the one in Chattanooga, but it's hundreds of pinball machines and old school video games like Miss Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Frogger and all of this. And it's unlimited. Everything's set on free play. So they had one of those in downtown Chattanooga. And I was like, let's do it. And so we had such a good time at the one in Asheville. We went and we were there for quite a while and played all kinds of pinball machines.
And I'm not very good at any of them. And the most disappointing was just to get to clear the first level of Frogger. It took multiple attempts for me, and I was very proud of myself.
I mean, Beth was on Frogger forever.
Yeah.
I thought, goodness, like she's about to
You thought it was like George Costanza?
I did.
Like I thought we were going to pull that machine out and keep it because I was going to have the record.
I thought you were going to be number one. And when you finally walked away, I was like, dang, honey. I was like, what were you? You must have done really good. You're like, yeah, I made it past level 1.
But you have to get
I said level 1.
But listen, getting the frog up in the left corner, you've got to really have some skill and do things right to get the frog. You know, the other 4 are kind of easy, but
how long did it take me?
I don't want to talk about that. But also, I didn't have a video game console growing up. That was not something that I had. And we didn't have a lot of places in Danbury to go play video games. Therefore, it's a good thing these are free.
Y'all didn't have an arcade at the Danbury Mall?
No, there was no Danbury Mall. Oh. That's what they call the Dollar General. For those who don't know, they call it the Danbury Mall. That came after my kids were born, honey. We didn't have anything like that. So where was I going to learn to play Frogger? I mean, like, I might draw some frogs, learn to draw a frog from the newspaper. It'd be like, learn to draw a frog. That's as close as I would get to Frogger. So I don't know these skills you think I would have.
Well, you know, and I would not, if I had to pump in quarters, I would not pay. But
because in some ways, pinball machines don't make a ton of sense. Because, like, I was playing the Star Wars one, and it was like, oh, now you have to go rescue the child or do something. And I'm like, I'm doing the pinball thing.
Well,
like,
and it's so, like, up to chance sometimes. Yes, I mean, the way they roll. Like, there was one time I pulled it back and let the ball go. And the ball ended up going down one of the side things, and it was over.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to do the flipper one time.
Yeah.
I didn't attempt it. So it's such a random game, but it's so fun, especially when you don't have to worry about pumping in quarters.
Well, and then that's when it gets addictive, because then I was playing, it was like the Star Wars game, and then what was the Godzilla? I'm trying to remember. There were a few. that like I was doing well enough that I'd get multiple balls at once. And so then I would just get obsessed. And it was like, I could not leave because I was like, I've got to keep doing this until I get multiple balls. I don't even know what I did to get them last time, but you know, I would feel like I was really good.
And I love it. The one in Asheville was like this too, where every pinball machine had like a really cool card on it or a little plaque.
That you could read about
and it told when it was manufactured, how many were manufactured, what the history was of that. So it really is treated like a museum.
Yeah.
And you can go by each. So it was, I think the one in Chattanooga, the earliest one they had was like 1972, I think. You know, and then works its way up. You know, they even had, if you had asked me, I didn't even know they still made pinball machines, but they had some that were manufactured in 2023. Yeah. So, you know, you're looking at over 50 years of pinball machines in that place. And they had one that was really cool. I don't know if you played it, called Hercules. Did you ever play Hercules?
I didn't play it. That one.
It is the world's largest pinball machine.
And it was massive.
The pinball is actually a pool ball. Like a billiard. It's like if you think about a cue ball or something, that's the size and the weight of it. And it's these massive flippers. And so I played that once and that was interesting. Yeah. But it was fun, but I'd never seen that before, but it was called Hercules. It's the world's largest pinball machine. So we did that for a while and then we took a tour.
Yes. What was the name of it? Experimental.
It is the Chattanooga Experimental Whiskey Distillery,
and we didn't even know what that meant. So we were like, "Oh, we're going to do a tour of this," and we don't know what it means to be, but experimental. But it truly is. Like they told all these interesting facts in the tour about the history and about kind of, I mean, essentially how I guess is it Jack Daniel or Tennessee whiskey or whatever. Like they kind of owned everything and you really couldn't break into the business, but they really wanted to have that distillery there and just the history and the tour was really fascinating.
They gave you, because it was broken into 3 parts. It was kind of the history of the whiskey in Tennessee. And it's just recently, like, what was it, 2011?
Yeah.
It got the prohibition stuff kind of got pulled back to where they could start making
because
whiskey.
They'd already gotten the land and decided they were going to have a distillery and then found out that legally they couldn't.
Yeah, they still had all these old laws on the books that they had to get repealed. And then they took us into the science of it and explained
like how they baked theirs.
It was over my head, but you seemed, as a chemistry major, you seemed really interested.
Well, and it was interesting. They talked about the organic chemist who did a lot of the work. And that was not one of the career paths they talked about when I took organic chemistry. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know that was something.
My counselor sucked.
My career counselor
They
never
told me I
that.
could go make whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? But it was interesting because he talked about, too, the reason this one's experimental is because they add a lot of the flavors and things on the front end of the process without relying as much on the barrels and the aging process. But they, in that facility where they were, they just have lots of experimental flavors and stuff. So it's just kind of fascinating.
They're like mad scientists with whiskey.
Yeah, just like, oh, we just let somebody come in and they're like, we'll throw a little of this in here and try it. Right. Yeah. And like you could smell, like they had them, like some of them that were being made at different stages and you could see that. And like the history of the barrels.
Yeah. They took us down into the barrel room in the basement and showed us like all these barrels.
But they told us, how long did it take for people to become barrel makers? It was like
8 years to become become an official barrel maker.
Yeah, because of the way they have to fit together and the way they're sealed together, and then talked about smoking the barrels and just all the different things. It was fascinating. It was really cool.
It was really cool.
And they had some really nice plants there too, some good succulents. I got some pictures of those.
Yeah. And then the third part of it was the tasting.
Yeah.
And you got to taste, I think, 8 different whiskeys.
Yeah. And 2 experimental ones out of that.
Yeah, 6 regulars and 2 experimental. So,
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun. I mean, I like that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, it was really neat.
It's rated the #1 thing to do in Chattanooga.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how I found it. I was like, all right, let's go to TripAdvisor. What does TripAdvisor advise us to do? And #1, it has a perfect rating, is that whiskey tour. And there's thousands of people that have rated it. So it's not like 4 people rated it.
Well, and there was also a couple from Kentucky there because he kept sometimes saying it was bourbon. And I was like cringing because I remember, in Kentucky, they're like, true bourbon is only in Kentucky. But they're like, no, legally, if it's American. Anyway, it's just funny like hearing people talk about it and their, I guess, allegiance to their home state products or whatever.
Yeah, they're very territorial with their alcohol.
Yeah.
Bourbon, whiskey, whatever.
Yeah. But our guy he knew a lot of information. He was a wealth of information. He was funny too. So he did a great job.
So it sounds like all we've done is eat and drink this trip, which it really was.
And then we went to eat again.
And then we went to go
dinner,
eat again.
And we met friends that live there.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike's former
mentor, he's
boss,
a former mentor. He's not my mentor anymore.
Well, I guess he is your
mentor. He is my mentor.
Sorry.
One of my mentors. I love this man to
Yeah.
death. He's like another father to me, Mike Willard. And his wife, Sheila. And they both live in Chattanooga now. And so we were able to meet them for dinner. And they recommended a place to eat. They wanted to take us out to eat at a place called The Feed Company. Yeah. And that's the same. The security guard had recommended it also the night before. So, and it was fabulous.
Yeah.
And the place was just hopping. And it was such good food. It was local food. It was really, really good.
We got to have some deep theological conversations about the book of Revelation and things. So, Anne talked about, and then just caught up on life and stuff too. So it was just kind of fun to.
And they took us on a little tour afterwards. We got to ride up top of a single mountain and see the city at night.
That was really cool. And all the houses and stuff that were up there because I don't know, I've been up on some mountains and I don't know, it didn't look like there was that much going on up there.
It's like their own little city up there.
It is. It was really cool. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
It was so good to see Mike and Sheila and just, loved them to death. And it was great to see them and spend some time with them and eat some good food at Feed. So again, if you're in Chattanooga, we recommend Feed. Yeah. As a place to go eat at. And
the Brussels sprouts were delish.
Yeah.
I had a steak and it was fabulous. Yeah.
And then this morning we just kind of got up and started heading out. We stopped and ate breakfast before we left. We tried to go back. I know we tried to go back to the Bluegrass Grill and it was we got there and it was closed. I should have looked ahead of time, but I assumed.
And it was cold today too.
Yeah, it was chilly this morning. Yeah. And so we found a place down by the water, Ruby Sunshine.
But I guess it's actually like a chain
out of New Orleans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
but our waiter was so good.
He was so great. And the food was great.
The food was great.
Yeah, the food was great and they were open, so that was good. We started heading back and Beth got her first ever visit to a Buc-ee's. Yeah,
and everybody else in my family has been but me. Maria went to one in Florida and you and the boys went when you were in one of your out west states one time and I wasn't there. So when when we were pulling in and there's it's like, oh, well, we know where to pull in. Well, there was an entire line of cars, kind of like when you're going into Sam's or Costco on a Saturday, like at the busiest time you can imagine, like this just line of cars going in. Then you're trying to park and all these people are trying to leave and people are eating in the parking lot and stuff. And I'm just like, what is happening? And I knew they had some cool branded stuff because you had sent me the time you went like a swimsuit and asked me if I wanted one. But
a bikini. Let's be not a swimsuit. I sent you a picture of a Buc-ee's bikini. It was like, you want me to get this for you?
And I was like, no. So when we get ready to walk in the door, the entrance, we go in, they've got like large those heaters that like are on a deck there, firewood and
grills,
like a grill. And I was just like, what is happening? And this is just outside. And then when I walk in the door,
it looked like you're going in Lowe's Hardware.
It was like on the outside. And then I go inside and it is like, I look to my left and it looks like a massive Cracker Barrel shopping area. Cause it's all those like, kind of the crafty, like the specialty soaps and candles
Live,
and like
laugh,
the
love
plaques and stuff. Like, and then I look to the right and it's like, oh my gosh, it's all the Buc-ee's like merchandise with like the face of is it a beaver? Yeah, like that little guy everywhere. And then you go a little further over. And they've got like Columbia sportswear and Reef flip-flops or something. I was just like, what is happening? And it is so crowded. And it's everything from like down home country people to college students that are like there, to families with little kids, to older people. I mean, just like this, just every type of person you can imagine. Just so many people. And I did get to see the swimsuits. And then I looked over at the beef jerky wall and tried 2 types of beef jerky. And we used the restrooms, very large restrooms. And we did get a snack or 2 to get on the road. We weren't hungry enough really for like lunch or anything, but if you wanted it, it's like the store at Cracker Barrel, but 6 times that size on one side. And then like the branded merchandise that like, I guess some other store would really play on. And then like a massive service station, but also sort of a restaurant where you go to the counter and buy it. I don't know. It was
to me
bizarre.
I thought about it today. I'm like, Buc-ee's is what would happen if Sam Walton and Walt Disney had a child together. It is Disney World meets Walmart.
Because they had a mascot and we got to get our picture with him and get a sticker.
That's what I'm saying. It has the branding of Disney. The thrill of Disney.
Yeah.
Just like, the energy of Disney.
Because as soon as you walk in, everybody's like, welcome. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But the clientele of Walmart.
Yeah. But like, it is like all
crazy.
over. It is like just nuts. And just, like I said, just so many people. And when I first walked into, I remember because I was like, okay, we're stopping at a quote in my head, gas station, and people were getting shopping carts. And I was like, what is happening right now? Why do you need a shopping cart in a gas station? And then I saw.
It's chaotic.
Yeah, it is.
It is just chaos. Mm-hmm. And I remember you said, I don't normally get overwhelmed ever.
Yeah.
And I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah. I just felt like it was so much. It was like a sensory overload. And I think also just all these like vastly different things that you're looking at in these different sections. And like, where do I give my attention and what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it was cool. I don't know that I'd want to be going and hanging out all the time, but.
I don't know if you can go in and out of that store and your heart rate not go up some.
Yeah.
Like you walk in and it's like the energy is just like, it's like everyone in there has been drinking Monster energy drinks before they went and walked in that store. Yeah. Everyone is just like, they just feel like they're bouncing off the walls and buying stuff.
Yeah. Oh man. And everybody was eating up the branded merchandise. They were all over it. Yeah. Somehow I was able to exercise restraint and I didn't get a stuffed animal or anything like that, but the photo with the mascot was enough for me.
And then we made it home safely.
Yeah, we drove home. And, speaking of driving.
Yeah, as soon as we got home, Josh had a big day a couple weeks ago. He got his learner's permit. So he's been wanting to drive everywhere. So as soon as we get in the house, he's like, all right, we all got to go out tonight. We got to go do something. We're like, well, no, I want to go drive. So confession. This is our 3rd kid that we now have put through driver's ed and has a permit. I have probably spent 5%, maybe 5% of Jacob, Maria, and soon to be Josh's driving instructional time in the car with them.
Because in North Carolina, they have to have 60 hours. Yeah. And so that might not sound like much to most people, but Josh and I have been driving multiple nights. And if you're only driving around your area 20 or 30 minutes, it takes a while to get 60 hours.
Yeah. And so Jacob and Maria had to do that. So that's 120 hours. Yeah. I bet combined, I wasn't in the car with them 1 hour.
Yeah.
My nerves can't handle it. I cannot handle being in the car with the kids when they're driving. I just cannot.
So I've done the
Beth
instructions.
does it like a champ. I don't know how you do it.
I mean, inside I'm dying a little and I do feel bad. I kind of wanted to go apologize to Jacob because you learn each one as you go, but I just know the first, like with Jacob, they closed down 40 and he had hurt his knee. And so we had to go to Winston multiple times. So I would go pick him up at school and he would drive himself out to Haynes Mall area for physical therapy. And then we would be on Business 40 in rush hour coming home. And I let him drive because my thing was my kids have gone to school in like city schools, like downtown area schools. And I'm like, they have to know how to drive on the interstate. And I want them to learn with me. And I remember the first time I got on the interstate with Maria, and she was like, this is the first time I've ever been on the interstate. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait. You didn't even do it in driver's ed. And she's like, no. And I was like, what? That is terrifying. Josh has been doing great, but I do feel like which I think some people would probably be the opposite. You might get more nervous, but I feel like I've gotten more patient and better with time. Like now for the third, I feel like Josh is getting the best me at this.
And I can let you confess this because we know our kids don't listen to the podcast, but you've already said you think Josh is the best of the three.
Yeah, he is. He's very conscientious and doesn't try to go too fast or too slow. I don't know. He's just doing a fabulous job.
And he loves driving the Subaru.
But I will say, now that's the other thing. Okay, so Mike was even showing me today. So Josh commented, and he's like, this is a really good car to learn to drive on. Because if you start to go over, the lines, it'll like beep a little bit. And then Mike...
It'll even tug your steering wheel a little bit.
Yeah, and Mike showed me today, if you put it on cruise control, it will just get up so close to the car in front of it and slow down on its own. Like, you don't even have to do it. I feel like it's like Kit from Knight Rider. I'm just waiting for that car to start talking to me because like it just feels like it can do anything. And that part, I am like, this is a great car to learn to drive on. I wish Jacob and Maria would have had that opportunity because there was a backup camera. And I told Josh, I said, you're going to have to learn. I'm going to make you do it, without a camera to look over your shoulder and do all that. But like very early on when you're wanting to check all that, because like people were parked across from our driveway and he had to back out tonight. And so having that camera and learning to back by them and stuff. I mean, it's great having a car that's got those extra things as opposed to us who barely had like power steering, I feel like. And the car I drove was like, that I learned on was massive. It was like driving a tank, and it was just hard, but this car makes it easy. So
I love my Subaru Outback.
I know it is. It's like
now Josh loves it.
I know. And like I said, I do feel like it's like the smartest car we've ever had. It's a
great.
super smart car anyway. But yeah, so that's been interesting, just like having that experience with Josh and watching him as we go and trying to make sure that, our kids get as much experience as they can driving in different conditions. That's the other thing that's hard is when you have to have them drive in the rain and do stuff like that. But Josh has already driven tonight in the dark. So yeah, so he's already getting some good experience.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That was the end of our Chattanooga special podcast.
Yeah.
We had a whirlwind weekend and it was a lot of fun. We love Dusty Slay. We love the town of Chattanooga. Hopefully, if you're thinking about going to Chattanooga, this gives you a little bit more insight. It is a great town to visit. Lots of history, lots of museums, lots to do.
And it was nice to come home and Cam was outside and he was so excited to see me.
Yeah, Cam's our neighbor.
No, he's my dog.
Oh, that Cam.
Yeah, anyway, he was so excited and it was so nice to come back and have an animal, have someone that like you could tell just thought that,
Was he raw dogging?
What?
Was
is
he raw dogging?
Wait a minute, I forgot what that means already. That's from the last...
That was from last episode.
Yeah. When you don't look at your at your phone.
Okay, so I won't rat out who did this, but I received a message over the weekend from someone who had just listened to the podcast, and they said, "I cannot believe y'all said raw dogging on the air." And I was like, and I sent them the thing that says,
does it mean something? Well, we don't know what it is?
I sent them a link. I said, here it is. And it talks about the TikTok trend of going and riding on a plane and not doing anything. And they said, that's the Gen Z definition. That's not the Gen X definition. And I was like, I'm not looking it up. Right. And then they said, I almost choked when I heard Beth use the word raw dogging.
Like, okay.
Well, this person did, and they have, I don't know. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Well, I just Googled
Are you looking it up now?
But the first thing that comes up is exactly what you talked about, which is Forbes, a respectable website that's telling me skipping out on little luxuries that come along with flying simply to do nothing, even to the point of discomfort.
There you go.
So
that's our definition. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Here. So that,
I don't know what you dirty-minded listeners are thinking of. This is a family podcast.
So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I didn't, and I mean, what are we going to do in this world though if every generation has like a different definition of a phrase, and then one's like it means something terrible and the other it means something good? That's going to stress me out, as if I'm not already stressed out enough about like not understanding half the words my kids say.
Well, there you go. That's part of getting old, Beth.
Is it?
You're going to say stuff and you're not going to know it.
Yeah, well, I did for another time though. We are going to talk about at some point, like how we've deconstructed songs, just like Dusty Slay. Some of the songs we've done with the kids. Yeah. That'll be one of our future episodes.
Probably ruin songs for them.
Probably. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been another great episode. Thank you, Beth, for chiming in and sharing, and thank y'all for listening. And we'll put a few links in the podcast. So if you'd like to go to Chattanooga, maybe you can, go visit some of these places.
And if you go or get to stay in the actual train cars, we think they may be divided in half. I can't imagine.
But some of them are rentable.
But we didn't get to see inside of those. So if anybody goes and stays in those, I'd love to see what they look like. Yeah, send pictures. Let me see. I'd like to know that. Yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, until next time.